Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto learns the art of killing, from a mysterious old man, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Uzumaki Naruto had failed his academy exams a second time. It came down to a simple bunchin at the end. God, he hated the technique. His clone ended up emaciated and black-haired, struggling feebly before dispelling on its own. It was so aggravating. He has spent hours every day trying to perfect the basics on his own, but it was never good enough. Even after his second failure at the exam, he dashed into the woods to practice until he passed out. If there was one thing that could be said about the blonde kid, it was that he was stubborn to the point of foolishness. Upon waking, covered in dew at the first light of dawn, Naruto prepared to start his unsuccessful training regimen again, but noticed another presence in the woods moving about in a small clearing. It was an old man, even older than the old man Hokage if that were possible. He wore simple clothes of a white t-shirt, black pants, and black slippers, not minding the cold. The white-haired old man manipulated an almost plain-looking one-handed sword with a deadly ease that appeared contrary to his years. His skin, tanned and leathery, held the faint tracery of numerous scars from countless battles. He was short and thin, but sinewy. It was as if the old man had been pared down to the pure essence of a seasoned killer. It was reflected in his appearance, and also his movements. Naruto had an uneasy feeling in his gut just watching the man practice, heedless of his 11-year-old presence. Even though the man said nothing to him or even glanced in his direction, it was like being in the rare presence of an angry Sanding. Despite his young age and inexperience, the young boy shivered, not being able to help it. When the old man stopped his movements, he asked aloud in a gravelly voice, "What do you want, boy?" The young had reflected upon all the times before where he had asked strangers for a fair deal or assistance, and had been ignored at best. This would probably be no different, but he still had to try. Naruto gathered up his courage and swallowed his pride, replying, "Gramps, please teach me how to fight." The old man laughed. It was like the sound of glass breaking. Regarding the whiskered blonde with mirth, he looked at Naruto, as if weighing his soul on an invisible scale. After a moment the old man muttered something to himself. Smirking, he stated, "You've got a giant pair of balls to ask me that, kid, but I've got no time for playground games. I don't fight, I kill, and I survive to keep on killing." The statement was said with no hint of a boast, just a simple, if not brutal fact. The honesty in the old man's words chilled Naruto to the bone. Naruto stood at a precipice, and instinctively knew it. He could jump one way or the other, and have his life irrevocably changed. Some deep parts of Naruto clicked. It was the same part that had survived all the loneliness, the apathy, and the unspoken hatred. Naruto wanted his life to change dramatically. The boy decided, saying, "Whatever you want to teach, I'll learn." The old man was tickled pink at the young boy's proclamation. From what he could sense, the kid was one of the few that had his heart in the right place. Time would only tell if he had the constitution to weather his type of training. The old man smiled like a shark sensing blood in the water. "It's not going to be that easy, boy. Unlike the styles of the lazy Hyuga clan or the thieving Uchiha, my art has to be ingrained in the body, and paid for with the flesh and blood of yourself and others. Are you prepared for that?" Naruto nodded vigorously. The old man continued, "I only have a few conditions. Do what I say when I tell you to do it, without complaint, and do not quit. If you fail on either count, your training will cease immediately. Lastly, if you abuse my teachings I will gut you like a fish, and I'll do so with the Hokage's blessing. You understand?" Dumbstruck, Naruto still managed to answer in the affirmative. "What is your name, boy?" "Uzumaki Naruto." A wave of recognition passed over that man's face. "That's a respectable name. Mine-san. Let's begin." The old man's sword vanished, and a small piece of paper appeared in his hands. He threw it at Naruto like a shuriken. The academy student caught it, and stared at it in puzzlement. "Trust me on this, boy, and gather some chakra into it." The look resembling constipation crossed the young boy's face, as he gathered his energies. The paper suddenly split in half down the middle. It left small, stinging cuts across his fingers, where the paper had been sliced cleanly. Smiling, Sen said, "Very good. It's in your nature to cut. This will be perfect." Naruto mentally questioned the old man's definition of perfection, as two razor-sharp, single-edged knives appeared in Sen's weathered hands. "Before I can teach you how to kill Naruto, you've got to learn how to cheat death. Now, avoid getting cut or stabbed. This will teach you distance, timing, accuracy, and sensitivity." The old man rushed at him, attacking fluidly. The knives' switching grips and angles of attack were a nightmare to deal with. Naruto was soon covered in small cuts and pinprick stabs. Naruto mainly dodged, but then he tried using a standard academy taijutsu block to counter a knife strike. It earned him a deep cut above his upper lip and below his nose that had scraped against his gums. Tears ran down his face, but he continued to dodge. The old man commented, "Don't try to resist my blows force to force. If you try to counter my fluidity with brute force, you will direct my knives to your weakest areas, and you will die." Naruto grew increasingly fearful. San could kill him brutally, and had no compunctions against showing that. The knife flashed out, cutting Naruto's left cheek. The strike severed the elastic tissue, causing the cheek to flap out, exposing the contents of his mouth to the world. The boy gripped his face in shock, feeling his tongue poking through the bloody muscles of his face. The boy froze in shock. One of Sen's knives found his belly, tearing savagely. The old man stared at him coolly, stating, "If you get distracted by your injuries, you will die." Sen ripped his long knife out of Naruto's abdomen, causing the young boy to empty out his bladder and bowels before being claimed unconscious. Sen quickly got to work muttering a prayer with his hands laid over Naruto's dying body, but not touching him. The grievous injuries that the boy endured quickly closed themselves, fading to pale pink lines. The old man did not know about medicine. He only had one method of miraculously healing injuries, but only ones that had been inflicted by his own energy and intent. It was the same technique his uncle used decades ago to train and heal him. It was sorely limited in its scope of healing, but it came in handy numerous times. Almost tenderly, he cleaned up his young student, abandoning filthy rags and replacing them with newly summoned clothes of a simple black and gray. San waited for his young student to regain consciousness, watching the small scars fading much faster than usual. When Naruto's bright blue eyes snapped open to meet his intense black ones with horror and fear, San felt the urge to explain things. "That is what it means to learn my art of killing. It will not get any easier. If you learn to the best of your ability, I will teach to the best of mine. I will never, ever harm you permanently unless you betray my teachings. I will not abandon you, and I expect you to do the same." San expected the kid to crap out like all the others. There were few with the proper heart to use these teachings, and even less with the constitution to learn them. Instead, Naruto's eyes widened with understanding. The white-haired old man was not actually being mean, but was actually being nice. San was acknowledging him. It was just that his art couldn't be taught in a nice way. "You've got yourself a deal, Gramps." The young boy held out his hand, which the old man had grasped in surprise. This young boy would endure his training and thrive. San trusted his instincts that had kept him alive for so many years on this. "Let's go get some food. My treat." The blonde cheered, before noticing his attire. "Hey, what the hell happened to my clothes?" The third Hokage watched these events through his crystal ball. He had a smile on his face that had not been seen for a good number of years. Although he winced at the brutality of Sen's training, there was no questioning the results. Sen was a veteran of the great ninja wars for a good reason. With no small degree of amusement, the Hokage quietly spoke, "So the executioner finally has a new apprentice. Good luck, young Naruto." It soon became routine for Naruto to start training at first light every weekday with Sen. Naruto had even taken to crashing at the mysterious old man's sparse apartment to wake up on time. The blonde orphan had grown used to sleeping on Sen's ratty old couch. The old man would train him, and then regularly buy him a hearty breakfast. Naruto, unused to such treatment, made sure to thank him each and every time. San requested that Naruto keep the details of his training a secret for now. Naruto silently swore to never betray the old man who had acknowledged him. Naruto's training now mostly consisted of an exercise that he mentally referred to as tag. It was the very same practice that the white-haired man had inflicted on him during the first meeting. It was a game of attack and defense where the old man was always the assailant and Naruto, a hunk of meat to be carved up. The old man always had his knives during the exercise, but the games would always be different time after time and day after day. The terrain would always be different, sometimes leaving him very little room to dodge. He had to make do with his body positioning. Sometimes, the retired ninja would wield a single knife in either hand and use the empty hand and the rest of his body to counter Naruto's feeble defenses or to pull him in fatally close. Naruto grew used to being stomped upon, elbowed, head-butted, and swept off his feet, while still having to deal with a knife or two threatening, and often succeeding, to gut him. Through all this, the old man never drew Naruto's blood without repeating a lesson. "Flank me, goddammit. Don't back up in a straight line. You will run out of space, as I rush you down. Move so that I've got to readjust to your position strike after strike," the old man swore, knives slicing the air, trying to drill the subtleties of evasion into the boy. "If caught in a place where you can't evade, parry just enough to remain behind the force of my attack. Any lack of subtlety on your part will get you cut and killed." Being invisible, Sen hissed, drawing a line of red at Naruto's brow, sending trickles of blood into the boy's eyes. The boy was learning to be quick and sneaky. "Relax, boy. You can't expect to survive my panic-stricken attacks. Calm yourself and breathe deeply." Thus, the boy learned to be calm facing danger whether he was bleeding, gutted, crippled, or blinded. It was not to say that old man San had no sense of humor while training. It was usually that if the old man was having a good time training Naruto, the odds were against Naruto having a fun time as well. Sometimes, to reiterate a lesson, the old man would specifically target a single point on Naruto's body, like his right eye socket. During one particular training session to remind the boy to keep his temper, San took a single knife in his right hand and spun it in his palm into an ice-pick grip. He then pummeling the boy's right eye with the pommel for any hint of a tantrum. It was the crudest kind of aversion therapy. When his student's face ended up bruised and swollen, San revealed that he was in range every time, if he chose to switch his knife to a forward grip, to shove his knife blade past the blonde's eye socket and into his brain. Anger will only get you and your loved ones killed, San spoke, weighed down by memories. For Naruto, it was another important lesson of the many he would learn. The effects of Naruto's training did not go unnoticed by some of his classmates. Hyuga Hinata noticed the object of her crush showing up exhausted to class. It wasn't an uncommon sight for her to see him sleep through entire lessons uninterrupted, for no instructor other than Iruka-sensei bothered to wake him up. The blonde's pranks that she had secretly found amusing were now few and far between, as if something else had captured his interest. Uzumaki Naruto was still confident and enthusiastic about his dream of being Hokage in the face of widespread disbelief and disapproval. That was what mattered most to her. Inizuka Kiba had noticed something off about Naruto, besides his new drab clothes with only the barest traces of orange. Both he and Akamaru detected the faint scent of blood, much of the time around Naruto. It was always his own. Normally, Kiba did not care much about the dead last student in his class, but the repeated instances disturbed him enough to once inquire about the situation. Naruto simply answered, training. It was enough to satisfy Kiba's curiosity for the time being. Iruka noticed subtle changes in his most troublesome, and if pressed to admit it, his favorite student. The blonde boy had calmed down just a little along with his troublemaking. Oddly enough, Naruto's usual boasts were intangibly less like posturing, and now held a certain genuine degree of pride. Outside of practices, Naruto found San to be a patient and even kindly old man. He encouraged questions from Naruto, but not whining. During their meals together, Naruto took the opportunity to learn more about his teacher and the art he was being taught. During one of their first meals together, the whiskered boy asked, "Why do we train the way we do?" The aged shinobi pondered for a second before answering. "I am putting you through hell now, because it is best that you get put through the paces during practice, rather than against someone who won't hesitate to kill you for real. Also, before you learn how to kill, it is helpful to experience the kinds of pain you will soon learn to inflict, so that you won't end up using your skills thoughtlessly." Naruto nodded thoughtfully. It made sense. The blonde knew exactly how it felt to have his entrails spilled or his eyes gouged out, and he would not do those things carelessly to another human being. It was like how the old man Hokage, exasperated over a massive prank, had wanted him to be more responsible. San continued, "What you are learning now in your flesh, blood, and bones is a deft touch. The Hyuga clan in Konoha has a style of taijutsu known as the Jyoken or Gentle Fist. Are you familiar with them?" The young boy shook his head, and the old man sighed at his ignorance. "Their goddamn style isn't gentle at all. They have a bloodline advantage that allows them to strike at their opponent's vital points directly with chakra. Compared to what I'm trying to drill into you, they are clumsy oafs that allow much more room for error." "Ha, what are you saying?" questioned by Uzumaki Naruto. "Boy, what happens when you fuck up when I attack you?" The blonde brought his right index finger to his lip in a thinking posture. "I end up cut or stabbed, blinded, missing fingers, coughing up pieces of my lungs." Naruto started to recall all the grievous injuries he received under Sen's tutelage, using his fingers to list them all. The old man interrupted, "Don't you get it? The stakes are so much higher for you than a Hyuga. In training, the worst injuries a Hyuga gets is clothes, or chakra points. It feels like pins and needles compared to the shit I put you through." Naruto sighed, "I wish I were Hyuga. Enough of that bullshit, boy. The defenses I'm teaching you will far outshine any cheap bloodline tricks. If you get this right, you'll learn how not to be touched by damn near any attack. Not a kick, punch, weapon or even chakra strike will injure you. You'll be a goddamn ghost. All you need is a deft touch." The blonde's eyes grew wide, becoming comically large. "Gramps, will this involve some crazy awesome teleportation?" Sen snorted in derision. "Nope. Just good old-fashioned complete tactile mastery of timing, space, and distance. Also an inhuman sense of self-preservation, bordering on precognition. It's how I survived at my age being a frontline fighter against a nine-tailed fox demon." Sen regarded the slightly dampened enthusiasm of his student and remarked, "Cheer up, brat. We haven't even started to learn about offense." Naruto threw himself wholly into his training, and, after a period of weeks, the results spoke for themselves. What would normally inflict deep injuries on the boy left shallower cuts, any attack that would have cut him shallowly merely grazed him, and what would have grazed him before he dodged completely. San nodded to himself, noting the boy's progress. Soon, Uzumaki Naruto would be ready to dish out the kind of damage he had been soaking up. Sarutobi kept an eye out on Sen's pet project, finding that he winced less and less as the Yondame's legacy became more and more proficient. Still, it took a special kind of nin who could maim a child on a regular basis and call it training. The Sandame's stray thoughts caused Special Mitarashi Anko to sneeze violently, flinging snot over an order of dango. Training Uzumaki Naruto in the arts of war often made San feel strangely sentimental. At times, it caused him to reflect upon his long life to avoid repeating the mistakes of his past. San was a few years older than Sandame. This meant that there were very few people left in Konoha who could reminisce with him. The one he was closest to had most of his time occupied with a village to run. Sen could remember that for every square foot of the village hidden in the leaves, some brave nin fought, bled, and died for it. The old man was considered his long-standing acquaintance throughout the Great Shinobi Wars and beyond. Sarutobi did indeed deserve the nickname the Professor, as much as Sen deserved his title as the Executioner. Sarutobi was known as the Professor for his unquestioned mastery of ninjutsu and his wisdom. If you were to ask the first Hokage about the origins of his mastery of Mokuton, the guy would just shrug, as if saying fuck if I know we're too much of a hassle. He might conjure you a wooden vacation house to stop with the questions. Sarutobi, though, would extrapolate theories about extreme and alignments with glee. He was always just a little geek. Sen knew much better than to regard him as a bookworm. The man was a vicious fighter, blending God knows how many disparate elemental attacks into a nightmarish whole. Sen's own reputation as the executioner came from the way he dealt with the enemies of Konoha. While he was not the monster the Sandaime was, very few ninja who tried to stand toe-to-toe with him made it out alive, and none unscathed. A nickname such as the Assassin did not fit his style on the battlefield, because it implied that he needed to sneak around to keep himself safe. He didn't. Sen could walk up to an entire group of enemy nin, and demand their surrender or guarantee their slaughter. His vast clandestine successes made him a mysterious bogeyman even within Konoha's own borders. Sen was quite capable of stealth and guerrilla warfare. One of his specialties was to infiltrate deep into hostile camps, and eliminate traitors to Konoha who collaborated with the enemy. He would often leave a traitor's eyes, ears, and tongue back at the enemy camp, unless the traitor had a. Do that enough times, and people are forced to give you a nickname. Back in the earlier decades of shinobi combat, people didn't have to get too creative with naming their adversaries, unlike what happened with Iwa nins, and their sworn enemy, the Yondaime. The nickname the Yellow Flash had been entirely too awesome for the young man at first, but he had earned it in spades by the end of his reign. The blonde had true grit. Witnessing the young man having his soul torn out willingly to save his village led Sen to regard him with nothing but the highest respect. The least that Sen could do would be to train his legacy to the best of his ability. During their first meeting in the woods, it wasn't hard for Sen to figure out that the lonely, malnourished blonde kid was Konoha's resident. The whisker marks were a dead giveaway. The kids had guts and spades. Taking the kids through town for meals, Sen knew the general populace of Konoha, even now, mostly shunned Naruto. Sen sensed that Sarutobi probably had some subtle master plan for the kid. Fuck that. Sen's mission was clear. The kid made no secret of his ambition to be Hokage. Even now, Sen could tell that the blonde, one day, would be a great hope to the village. Sen would mold him into a terror, the type that would cause the more stubborn citizens of Konohagakure to be shitting bricks. Sen smirked to himself. It would be fun to see, after all these decades, if that snot-nosed punk Danzo was still a bedwetter. One October morning, Sen interrupted practice to pose a question to his young student. Do you know why I'm teaching you to dodge knives instead of swords or any other weapons? Naruto paused in his dodging to think a bit. He hazarded a guess. I don't know, don't most ninjas carry kunai? Not at all, boy. Therein lies the secret to what I'm teaching you. At hand-to-hand close combat range, I can change my angles of attack with a small knife much faster than with a sword. The longer weapon needs more distance and time. You're being pressed to learn to deal with more attacks at a shorter distance with less room for error. Something seemed to click in Naruto's head. So the closer an attack is to me, the more danger I'm in. Sen smiled. It seems like you're finally catching on. Naruto beamed at rare praise from the old man. The old man decided to press his luck and put forth another important question. Boy, what do you think is the basis of the defensive style you are learning right now? Confident, the blonde kid answered, that's easy. Speed and strength. Absolutely. Naruto expected another bit of rare praise from Senator. He already had a hand behind his neck in an aw shucks motion. Wrong. What do you mean, Gramps? Isn't that all you need? Sen did an admirable job of suppressing the urge to hit Naruto upside the head. No. The basis of this style is precision. That's the reason I'm not having you do chakra exercises yet, or wearing weights. It's why we're training with razor-sharp weapons. What about being strong and fast? Asked a deflated academy student. Precision must be ingrained before gaining strength or speed. They can always be added later, but my art requires an extremely high level of precision that is impossible for someone who already possesses great amounts of speed and strength to learn. How does that translate to fighting? Asked an intrigued Naruto. Sen grinned shark-like again. With this kind of precision in mind, you'll become a scalpel rather than a cudgel, and be able to accomplish more with 1 square foot of space than a so-called taijutsu specialist could with 10 feet of space. Trust me. It will all make sense when you start fighting other people. Sen summoned a small brown paper wrap package to his hands and tossed it to the boy. Naruto was stunned, not having received gifts from anyone besides the Hokage and Iruka-sensei. He tore open the package and could hardly contain his glee. This is why I asked you about the foundation of your defenses today. Happy birthday. Naruto gave his elderly teacher the fiercest hug his 12-year-old arms could offer, and then went to examine his new pair of knives. They were of a simple design, almost elegant, with single-edged matte black blades. The handles were textured and comfortable, allowing for various grips. Each blade had a spear point, and they were about a foot long overall. They were pragmatic and deadly, much like the old man teaching Naruto. "Hey, do you want to gawk at them all day or do you want to learn how to use them?" asked San amusedly. "I'm here to learn," said the blonde boy, looking almost comically serious. San allowed himself a chuckle before becoming serious again. "Naruto, I need to teach you about my uncle first, the man who taught me how to kill. Understanding his intentions in creating the art we practice now is even more important than learning any specific technique." Naruto listened intently, as Sen's history lessons tended to be very entertaining and very violent. A textbook was in no way as interesting as someone who lived through those events. Sen took a deep breath before revealing the true origins and intent of his art for what was probably the first time. It would not be a pretty story to tell. Sen had a sad, faraway look in his eyes as he began. Naruto noticed that there was almost a kind of twinkle in his dark eyes as the old man spoke. "My uncle grew up in a time before there were major shinobi villages. Times then were vicious and lawless. Villages, large and small, were harassed by roving bands of bandits and ninjas. Most of the time, these assholes would pillage, rape, and kill freely, unless a particular village could afford mercenaries or had their own private army. Living in a smaller village, his family was attacked by one of these gangs. His father died in the attack, and the gang's savagery left his mother and sister barely alive. With few options left, my uncle, when he was about your age now, joined a mercenary band to provide for his family. His mother and sister would stay in a larger, fortified village, and he would earn his keep on the battlefield to provide their accommodations. One day, the crude explosive trap killed several of his fellow mercenary nins, and wounded him severely. It tore off his left arm below the elbow, and mangled his left leg, leaving him with a severe limp. Half crippled, his family would eventually run out of money, and be left to fend for themselves without the protection of a large village, unless he found a way to make a living. So he adapted. With only one hand, most ninjutsu were beyond him. Taijutsu and weapons were not. He fought, traveled, and learned all over the elemental countries. Oftentimes, people would teach him out of pity or duty. Naruto could not help but interrupt. "How did your uncle become a ninja with his injuries?" Sen smirked. That tricky old bastard combined everything he had learned and made do with ironclad control over his body and his chakra, and by becoming extremely precise and efficient in his movements and chakra usage. You have to understand that, technically, he was at a severe disadvantage against pretty much anyone he came up against. What made him extraordinarily lethal, even legendary, was his mindset. The core mentality of our fighting method centers around killing every single opponent you encounter regardless of their advantages and your disadvantages. We always assume our opponents will be faster, stronger, more skillful, in better health, and with more experience than ourselves. We will kill them all the same. Our enemies have the luxury of being sloppy compared to ourselves because they have perfectly functioning bodies. That is why they die in great numbers before us. I'm training you to be a vicious bastard and to take nothing for granted. You'll do so with finesse and ease by the time I'm through with you. San nodded at Naruto. "Pick up your knives, boy. It's time to put theory into practice." The training that followed put all of Naruto's previous training with San to shame. First, Naruto became intimately familiar with the knives San gave him. Soon Naruto's knives felt like extensions of his body, as natural as his whisker marks. He could switch basic grips with his knives faster than he could perform hand seals. Blade up, edge out. Blade up, edge in. Blade down, edge out. Blade down, edge in. The best and most efficient ways to use these grips were hammered and often stabbed into him. Blade up, edge out. Blade up, edge in. Blade down, edge out. Blade down, edge in. The boy learned all manner of tricks with his knives, like how to spin the weapons in his palms to change grip, and how to subtly change grips mid-strike. The boy learned anatomy, and how it related to his techniques. Sen tutored him on where to strike to maim, to cripple, to immobilize, and where to strike where no tourniquet or skilled medic nin could prevent death. They learned how to create ragged wounds by stabbing and tearing, the kinds of wounds that could not heal cleanly if they healed at all. Naruto discovered how to disembowel a man with the least amount of effort, even a man with a belly like an Akimichi with a small 2-inch blade. Naruto had asked San once why they used single-edged knives, instead of more dangerous double-edged ones. San's answers always relate back to control and precision. He learned how to switch grips, and how to increase the power of his strikes, by using various parts of his body, as fulcrums against the backs of his blades. He learned knife tactics and strategy, how to use someone's defensive reactions to cause their downfall, and how to confuse the predictive abilities of users and other advanced ninjas with his own. Sen offered this important piece of advice. Don't rely on just one attack or basic combination of strikes. You have got to move and react with your enemy like a dancing partner, or even a lover that you will ultimately have to kill. If you get preoccupied with doing a particular technique, they will predict your actions and cut you a new smile through your throat. Move with them like a shadow would. Later, Sen took the knives out of his hands and taught him how to apply his knowledge and precision empty-handed. Naruto found that his hands and reactions were even faster emptied, as Sen taught him things like how and where to strike, and how to cause a spiral fracture of the spine in 3 places with a single smooth movement. All these things Naruto learned so far were done without the use of chakra. As per Sen's request, Naruto did not wear his weapons in public yet, but stored them in his backpack. He also still kept his training sessions with Sen a closely guarded secret. Naruto trudged through his academy work, often bored. The only area where he improved visibly was with throwing kunai. Even during those rare instances where he was partnered up with a classmate for taijutsu exercises, he mainly dodged, occasionally placing a flat palm solidly along exposed vital areas. His partners occasionally would get frustrated and criticize him for running away, but no one actually recognized what he was actually doing. He was training the same distance, if had a knife, to sink his blade completely to the hilt. They were moving, and he was mentally carving them up. In his spare time, the blonde boy experimented with chakra and basic academy. His henge and kawarimi were fine, but he still could not get a handle on the basic bunshin technique. The odds, he hated that technique. Naruto even experimented once with channeling chakra into his knives, but, after nearly decapitating himself and cutting his kitchen table in half, he wisely decided to wait for San to teach him properly. Naruto sourly mentioned the difficulties he had with the basic bunshin to San. The old man snickered, saying, "Don't worry about that, boy. I'll show you one better." The young boy got all sparkly-eyed and giddy. "Really? Yeah, I guess it's just about that time." With that, after weeks and months of teaching offensive techniques, Sen began instructing Naruto in the use of chakra. Sen spent a solid week teaching Naruto the tree walking and water walking, and had the boy practice them on his own in private. After feeling that he had mastered these practices sufficiently, they began playing their twisted version of tag atop the water. It helped build Naruto's chakra control immensely, as nothing disturbed the concentration needed for sparring on water, quite like horrendous knife wounds. Best of all for the blonde, Naruto could finally create decent bunshin. It wasn't hard for Uzumaki Naruto to notice how the intensity of their training sessions dramatically increased. Sen did everything to stack the odds against Naruto's favor while sparring, forcing him to rely on himself with or without weapons. One day, without warning, Sen made good on his promise to show Naruto better than the basic bunshin. He did so by using it on him viciously. Dodging the old man's attacks, Naruto was caught off guard as a solid clone burst from the surface of the water, catching him with a hooking thrust right below his jaw. The clone's knife slid behind his jawbone, piercing through Naruto's tongue and the roof of his mouth. Naruto was caught like a fish wriggling on a line, as his mouth filled with the coppery taste of blood. After sealing the boy's wounds, Sen told Naruto that the technique was called the cage bunshin. Its approach is the opposite of a regular bunshin. It requires loads of chakra and is good for people with large amounts of chakra like yourself. The technique is also great for information gathering. If a clone is dispelled, you receive its memories. After teaching the boy the theoretical aspects of the technique, Sen challenged his student to pump a good deal of chakra into the Naruto, never being one to do things halfway, used as much chakra as he dared, filling their practice space with a sea of blondes. It was Sen's turn to be surprised, as he saw the blonde boy was barely winded. "Well fuck. I guess it's time for a break." Sen appeared in the Hokage's office with a package. He greeted his old friend. "Sir Toby, I assume you know what I've been up to for the past few months." The professor smiled warmly. "I don't think you could have picked a better protege than our young Naruto." The older man snorted. "Yeah, I wish I could spend more time teaching him, but I feel my allotted time is growing short." Sen tossed the Sandame a fairly weighty package. "This is for the boy in case something happens to me." The Hokage accepted the bundle without saying a word. From the time Naruto had first met Sen to where he had learned the Kage Bunshin no, it had been almost a year. Uzumaki Naruto's third opportunity to pass the academy exams was fast approaching. When Naruto asked San how much of his ability he could display at his tests, the old man just smiled evilly before replying. "Go nuts, kid." Naruto rocked back and forth on his heels, barely able to contain his excitement. The academy exams were about to start, and Naruto couldn't wait to begin. Many of his classmates looked at him as a hyperactive weirdo, wondering why he was so enthused. "I am going to kick so much ass today they'll have to make me Hokage," proclaimed Naruto proudly to a largely indifferent room. Hyuga Hinata silently cheered a crush on, and Akamichi Chouji and Inizuka Kiba watched amused, but the others looked mostly annoyed or as if they could give a damn. The blonde did not care in the slightest. Naruto reflected on all the training he had to keep secret, how he bled, and worked harder than he ever thought possible. Just recently, Sen started to give him instructions on the basics of imbuing his knives with chakra. The old man explained that Naruto was lucky because he had a wind element alignment, meaning he could learn to manipulate the nature of his energy as a weapon to cut and pierce. Just this morning, he had been fighting against Sen's cage bunchins, so that he could practice delivering fatal blows to a skilled human target, but fighting more than one evil old man was painful indeed. Before Naruto left for the academy, Sen promised to pick up a new outfit for Naruto that contained some orange if the blonde tested well. Naruto didn't really need the extra incentive, but it would be welcomed like a cherry atop a fudge sundae. Moving to the center of the room, the gray-haired instructor Mizuki spoke up, addressing all of the prospective genin. This year's exam will consist of two main parts, a portion where you demonstrate your mastery of Henge, Kawarimi, and Bunshin, and a Taijutsu portion where you demonstrate your proficiency in hand-to-hand combat. The students quickly lined up to demonstrate their skills. When Uchiha Sasuke's turn came around, he was cheered on by many of the girls in the class, as he performed his techniques flawlessly. With a single hand seal, the dark-haired boy created 5 Bunshin, earning substantial praise from Mizuki and Iruka. By the end, he looked quite pleased with himself. A stream of students came and went, some succeeding, and others failing. It finally came to be Uzumaki Naruto's turn. Yamino Iruka sincerely hoped that his favorite student would be able to pass this time. The Scar knew that Naruto was a good kid who would do great things for the village one day. Mizuki just watched him passively. Naruto performed his Kawarimi perfectly. Iruka called out, "Naruto," and changed into either himself or Mizuki. Naruto did as he was asked and, with the poof of white smoke, transformed into a perfect copy of his favorite teacher. Before Iruka could continue with the last, and most difficult, part of the exam, Naruto interrupted. "Wait. I've got one more for extra credit." With another poof of smoke, the blonde examinee transformed into a cute and busty ponytailed brunette. The attractive woman had a distinctive scar across the bridge of her dainty nose that did nothing to detract from her looks. She wore black skin-tight short pants, with ninja sandals, and a standard vest. She wore nothing else underneath said vest. The brunette licked her full lips, and sashayed towards the stunned. She slowly began to unzip her vest. "Iruka-sensei, about that extra credit." The henge dispelled, leaving a smiling 12-year-old blonde boy. "Do I get it?" Naruto's antics received a good deal of laughter from the students in the room, much to the chagrin of a red-faced Iruka. They sighed. It seemed that Naruto would always be a prankster at heart. "Just create at least 2 Bunshins, Naruto. That will be all." Without the usage of any hand seals, Naruto wordlessly created 2 perfect clones of himself. Naruto noted that Mizuki looked vaguely irritated, as if he just drank some sour milk. Iruka was relieved, and quite impressed. "Great work, Naruto. You've improved a lot over this past year. You passed this portion of the exam." Naruto cheered loudly. Iruka was surprised even further, as Naruto's clones cheered his accomplishment as well. They patted him on the back, and shared a round of high fives before being dispelled. Iruka gaped to the sight of Naruto's clones jostling his body. Those clones had flesh and blood bodies. They made a mental note to ask Naruto where he had learned such an advanced technique. Yamino Iruka was not the only one to notice the unusual features of Uzumaki Naruto's Bunshins. Uchiha Sasuke watched the blonde with clenched fists, his eyes narrowing. The students were led outside to the academy courtyard for the Taijutsu part of their exam. Here, Iruka addressed his students. "You will be chosen, at random, to spar with another of your classmates. No weapons, or lethal attacks. You will fight until submission or knockout, or until 5 minutes have passed. We will interfere if a match becomes too one-sided." The smaller student raised a hand, asking nervously, "Do we need to win to pass?" "No, not at all. Just make a good showing, and you'll do fine. Good luck to you all." Names were called, and students made a good impression or did not. Soon, only 2 names were left. Mizuki, holding a clipboard, rattled off the last 2 names. Uchiha Sasuke. The academy instructor almost sneered. And Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka was a little concerned about hearing that the top academy student would fight against someone with the worst grades. Cheers arose from Sasuke's fans. Yamanaka Ino remarked, "This is not even going to be fair. Sasuke'll cream him." Haruno Sakura yelled, "Kick his ass, Sasuke-kun." Since it was later in the day, some parents had shown up by this time to watch the matches. Many of them cheered loudly for the last Uchiha. Some, like Inizuka Tsume, inwardly cheered for them because they were fans of underdog victories, but hardly anyone voiced their support publicly. Sasuke spoke to his opponent like he did to most of his peers, condescendingly. "Are we going to start or not?" Naruto met his opponent in the center of the courtyard set aside as the examination area. "Any final words, dead last?" Unbeknownst to all, Naruto had learned much more than fighting from Sen. He also became fairly well versed in the fine art of swearing. On special occasions, like this one, he would grace the world with his knowledge. Naruto gave Sasuke his most cheerful smile. "Go suck a spec cock, Sasuke-chan." The blonde flipped off his opponent while still maintaining his cheerful visage. The people in the audience who were paying attention were treated to the rare sight of an angrily flushed Uchiha Sasuke. Narushikamaru groaned. This would not end well at all. Mizuki yelled, "Begin," before backpedaling out of the way of an impending bloodbath. Sasuke rushed at his opponent, intent on taking him apart piece by piece. Everything went wrong. The blonde dodged his fastest of strikes by the narrowest of margins. Naruto was so close, but the Uchiha, time after time, failed to tag him. It was like trying to fight the wind. Sasuke grew frustrated, yelling, "Fight back, god damn it." Naruto smiled a wicked smile, and compiled. He simply did his best impression of San. Sasuke launched a powerful right punch towards the annoying blonde's jaw, but Naruto blended with the movement, moving slightly to the side with a subtle parry with his left hand. He countered simultaneously with his right. It was a smooth movement, as if they had been choreographing a dance together all their lives. To any outside observers, it looked like Sasuke had simply dived face first onto Naruto's fingers. In reality, the blonde countered with a simple eye jab to the Uchiha's right eye socket, causing the dark-haired boy's eyes to water, and his vision to blur. It was all too fast how the blonde followed up his initial counter by sweeping his opponent off his feet, grasping his opponent by the neck, and then slamming the back of his head on the ground, using the momentum of Sasuke's fall and gravity viciously. Naruto spun quickly, stomping on Sasuke's groin hard, as if he would win a prize if he popped something. The blonde even managed a series of kicks to the floor, vomiting the boy's ribs, before Mizuki got over his surprise enough to end the match. The onlookers were shocked into complete silence, Sasuke's fangirls not able to process what happened. Akamichi Chouji dropped the potato chip he was about to eat. Even Hinata flinched at the viciousness of Naruto's match. Kiba cheered, not having seen a beatdown that severe since, well, ever. Iruka pulled Naruto to the side. Did you know that if you messed up with the eye jab, you could have blinded him permanently, Naruto? The blonde smiled, and answered, yep, placing his hands behind his head. Sometimes, I just don't know what to do with you, exclaimed the Scar in exasperation, throwing his hands up in the air. In the end, Naruto received his hit eye proudly while Sasuke Uchiha hobbled forward, clutching his abused groin, to get his. He tried to glare at Naruto, but the best he could manage was a pained grimace. Naruto noticed one of the first-year students, a spiky brown-haired kid Jiichi, about to burst into tears because he failed the exams. Knowing the pain of this particular failure, Naruto went to comfort him, only to be beaten to the punch by Mizuki. Wow, Mizuki-sensei not being a dick. Now I've seen everything, thought the whiskered boy. Iruka treated his student to a well-deserved meal at Ichiraku's ramen, and, about to inquire about the skills the blonde displayed at the exams, was interrupted by a fellow. Iruka, we're on high alert. Apparently someone had stolen the forbidden scroll of seals. We need your help. Iruka excused himself, and sped off to find the culprit. Naruto trailed behind, out of sight. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time, till then sayonara.